welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. So I know it's been a hot minute since I filmed last. I was gonna bulk film today, but I haven't been feeling so good, which is my own fault, totally my own fault. I still wanted to make a video today because there's a topic that I've been seeing not really addressed as much. I'm not really sure why. So I figured I want to make a video about how to get better grades without studying and how to get into the school of your dreams. Sorry. Fun fact, when I was still in the law of attraction community, so I didn't really understand the law of assumption, but I understood like the basics. I actually used the law of assumption without knowing it to get good grades or better grades for a test I didn't study, and I also got into the school. I don't want to say it was a school of my dreams necessarily, but it was a school that I really wanted to get into, that at the time I was told it was impossible. And I'm gonna get into that as like a success story. First and foremost, if you're new here, I do everything law of assumption and just teach you basically that it's nothing but science. So if you like this kind of content, please make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, and all of those good things. Let's get into the first story. So getting good grades without studying. So this is a little bit of a tricky one because technically you can just affirm that you aced whatever test you're taking, that you are getting downloads, and that you know all the answer. And that's basically what I did. So when I was doing that, it wasn't like I got the best grade in the whole world. Like I didn't get an A+ or anything, but it was far from the failing grade that I would have gotten, because it wasn't just that this was a topic that I hadn't studied for. This was, I think at the time, for history or some sort of religious studies or something along those lines, that I absolutely had no knowledge of. This wasn't something where you could just wing it or pretend to maybe know it. This was hardcore facts that you either knew something about or you didn't know anything about. So me not knowing anything about this topic and already being like on the brink of failing, this was a huge deal. I honestly can't remember why I didn't study for that. All I remember is sitting in the classroom, having the paper in front of me, affirming that I'm getting downloads, and I got the downloads, and I literally just answered them. It was, I was basically taking what you would consider inspired action. So I wasn't sitting there and thinking about the answers. I was literally just my hand, like letting it guide itself. I don't remember if it was we didn't really do a whole lot of multiple choice ones, so you did have to fill out things as well from what I recall. But yeah, basically I was just letting my brain do the thing. I took a step back. I wasn't trying to force it, and whatever I didn't know, I just came back to it later. And I think I got a C at the time or something along those lines. It was a passing grade. That's all I cared about. So I wasn't aiming for a very high grade. You can affirm, however, that you are getting straight A's without doing a whole lot of studying and just pass everything with flying colors. The thing is this, oftentimes we do this because we see other people who basically state, oh, I never study, and then they get like an A++, and you don't even know how they did that. Fun fact, they're telling you that they didn't study when in secret they probably studied like crazy, okay? Apart from the fact that they probably have good self-concept. The thing with affirming for getting good grades when you haven't studied isn't about you necessarily just affirming that that is what's going to happen. It's basically conquering years and like decades worth of us being told and taught that we have to study really hard to get the things that we want. So you do have to address those societal beliefs on top of you affirming for good self-concept. So I always know all the answers to the questions. I'm a straight A student. I don't have to study for my good grades. I just know everything. Like I just have knowledge downloads, like whatever it is that you want to say. Doesn't really matter. Like you can just make up your own affirmations that would embody for you being so good at everything that you don't need to study for anything. But even me just saying that, you might already realize, or you might already have like a little red flag coming up being like, well, that sounds a little unrealistic. It's true, because we were trained and conditioned that this is impossible, and it is not true. Do I think it's possible? I think it's absolutely possible. I think if you can think about it and believe it, there's an alternate reality where this is already the case. So I think it's absolutely possible. You just have to really be honest with yourself and really face your own predominant beliefs when it comes to studying. This is a very personal thing, by the way. So me giving one person the affirmation of I'm a grade A student will not be the correct affirmation for somebody else. This isn't like a blanket thing that you can do, because everybody had very, very different experiences when it comes to grades. There could be some trauma involved, right? Maybe there's some parent stuff, or you know, when they told you weren't good enough, or maybe they told you weren't good enough in this subject, or, you know, maybe people told you weren't good in this, that, and the other, or maybe you grew up in a community that was very, let's just say, I don't know, girls can't drive, or something along those lines. So you do have to ask yourself, what are my predominant beliefs when it comes to this particular topic? Because I personally would go from subject to subject. I wouldn't just do a blanket affirmation, only because the chance of you maybe running into a belief that doesn't serve you with one subject can derail everything else. And I don't think that there's a need for that. Like, you can add an affirmation or two on top of you already affirming that you're a grade A, like top student or whatever, to counteract that, so you don't have to start from scratch if you are realizing that, oh, I'm good over here now, but this is not working for this topic, and then thinking that it's just not working in general. Because it does. It is always working. Like, the law is always working. So I don't want you to think that you might just be doomed to be bad in this one subject and you do have to study or study harder. Now, on the other hand, you could also affirm that you are studying the correct amount that you need to study in order to get the good grade. And on top of that, that studying is really easy for you. You enjoy it. You love making time for it. It's one of your favorite pastimes, and you always have more than enough time to study. You're always starting your papers ahead of time, so you never fall behind. Those are also affirmations that you can do if you don't want to start digging into all of those beliefs that you have about the way the system is set up, or the way that we as humans in general just operate. Go with the flow. You don't always have to change everything. Like, people always think that if they want something, they have to go all the way on this side of the pendulum, and sometimes it's enough to just go a little bit past the middle and not all the way to the other extreme, and just work with what you already have. And this is also really helpful if you're seeing something in the 3D that you don't like. I actually did that once, where I was acting based on a grade that I got that I felt I didn't deserve. And I wrote an email and I did all of that. So I did react, and initially got the response of like, well, there's nothing we can do though. This is the grade that you got. So I was working with that instead of, you know, revising it or doing this, that, and the other. I actually affirmed that they changed their mind. So I was going with the negative experience that I had, and they ended up changing my grade. I literally went from the grading system in Australia is different, so I don't remember it exactly, but I went from I think the equivalent would have been going from a C to an A minus or something along those lines. It was good enough for me, obviously, but sometimes it's okay to just work with what you have and make what already is a predominant belief just a little bit more favorable for your current situation. Now, when it comes to manifesting yourself into the school of your dreams, the first thing you have to let go of is the fact that you're not good enough, or that you are in competition. You're not in competition with anybody. You're the creator of your reality. You make the rules. So it's not that you want the school, it's that the school wants you. And what I did at the time is I applied for a highly competitive program mid-semester. And this school told me that they never ever in their entire history, as long as the school existed, never ever accepted anybody mid-semester. That's just not something they did. Of course, to me, music to my ears, because I was like, well, I'll be the first one. I'll just manifest that, and I don't care what they say. It doesn't matter to me. To me, all I heard was, well, challenge accepted, okay? So I affirmed at the time that I was already accepted as part of the school. I actually started doing research into their, what is it called? Moodle? Is it Moodle? I don't know. I don't remember. Like the study thing, like the student hub that you can log into online. And I was doing research on that just to see how it would look. And I was reading through all the program guides to kind of see what subjects I would take, all of those things. Like, I was literally preparing myself in a way that I would have done had I already gotten that spot. Now, mind you, you obviously don't always have to do that. It kind of depends on the situation. But in this case, had I been accepted mid-semester, because they were literally in the middle of everything, I would have had to start the day my acceptance letter came. So I knew that the day it came, the next step would have been for me to log into that student hub, do all the research that I did preemptively, and to really get myself into the subject. So that's what I did. And I think I only did that for 2 or 3 days. And every time someone asked me about it, I was literally like, I'm so excited. I switched schools. Like, I wasn't even allowing anybody to tell me otherwise. Sometimes I would just dodge the question if I wasn't feeling so great. I was just like, yeah, I'll let you know and stuff. You know, I didn't really want to like go into it too much at times, but most of the time when I was talking to people that I didn't feel like would look at me crazy or would care very much, I would tell them I got in. It took about a week from the day that I started affirming to the day I got my email. And I literally said in the email, we never do this. We have never done this. You are the first and the only one. They didn't just say the first, they said the only one. And I was like, well, thank you. I was very happy. I was very excited. I ended up not going to that school for completely different reasons. I switched programs and then it was just like this whole big thing. So, but at the end of the day, like I wasn't upset about not going there, but I was still very excited at the fact that I could do it. And at the time, to me, it was like, oh my God, I used the law of attraction to manifest something. But if you know anything about the law of attraction, you know it's very like fluke-y. Like I felt like it was a fluke. Almost like, wow, I finally manifested something like good for me. And I did hold on to that a little bit, but the second you try to manifest something else and it doesn't work, obviously all of that goes down the drain. So, but it was still this experience that just made me feel so good about myself. Like, oh my God, I was able to do that. And literally all I affirmed was, I'm a student at this school. I'm logging in, I'm doing all of this. I literally made a mental list in my head as well of, what do I need to do? When will my exams be due? When will my papers be due? How much preparation do I have to do? How much will my books cost? Like I was just thinking about all of those things as if I had already gotten my acceptance letter. So getting into the school of your dreams is actually, I would veer, one of the easiest things to manifest because you can prepare ahead of time, way ahead of time, before you even get your acceptance letter. Now, this just reminded me of another story where I knew someone who was actually manifesting buying a house. They had this very specific house that they wanted. And they were doing all of the things, preparing everything, and even had a sign made with the address and everything, but they ended up not getting the house. And this is where it also comes in, okay? I don't want you to prepare for the school of your dreams in order to convince yourself that you will get in, because that's where most people go wrong. They do this because they think that it will convince their brain somehow that maybe we have a chance, and I'm doing this because I'm living in la la land of I want to get into this school, so I'm going to pretend I'm part of it. That's not the point of acting as if or living as if or whatever you want to call it. The point of it is you doing it because it's second nature to you, because you already have what you want. So the thought process, the feelings process, whatever you want to include into that needs to come from a completely different place of you doing something because you're hoping to get it and you're living out this fantasy because you don't want to sit around and deal with the fact that you don't have it. It's like trying to brainwash yourself into, I already have what I want, I think, I hope. Well, let's just make believe because I'm actually really not sure. And I have a lot of doubts, but if I make believe, it actually releases endorphins and I can feel good for like 5 to 10 minutes while I do it, only to then, when I stop, fall back into my reality and realize like, wow, I actually don't have it right now. And this gave me kind of a high, so I have to go back. It's almost like an addiction that you're building when you're doing too much of make believe and pretending if you're not doing it correctly. It always needs to come from the correct place of I'm doing this because this is part of my everyday life. I'm not masquerading as that person, right? Dress for the job that you want. If you feel like you're a clown because you're dressing up in a costume that isn't really who you are, then you're never going to get anywhere. But if you dress up for the part that you want, the role that you want to play, knowing you're embodying that mind, body, and soul, then the job is already yours or whatever it is that you want, which is why method actors are so good. But it's also really, really dangerous. I am going to make a separate video about method acting because I think it's very interesting. But this is why a lot of them, when they play characters that are highly damaged or toxic, why their lives spin so much out of control. And it's because they're so engulfed in their role that the thought process that the character has then becomes their own thought process. And now all of a sudden their real life starts to unravel because they can't really deal with the consequences and the fallout and the, confusing thoughts that they might have going back and forth and just trying to deal with everything that is going on. I think acting is one of the most beautiful, one of the most dangerous professions. That's why I also always say be careful what kind of music you listen to, the lyrics you sing, all of that kind of stuff, because those are all affirmations. But actors are specifically at risk for that. So we should learn something from them, because acting in your own life is basically you being Delulu, and that's great and that works great for you. But we also need to use the ones that haven't gone so well as a cautionary tale to be mindful of the things we consume and the way we use the method acting, because sometimes we can even talk ourselves into a place where it can push us into depression and all kinds of other things, because if you're acting as if all the time and it's a separate fantasy from your real reality, that can really mess with you, which is why I personally think shifting is so dangerous, because that's what you're doing when you're shifting. You're not shifting into a new reality, you're shifting into a fantasy that doesn't coincide with your current reality. So you're escaping to a place to feel better while coming back to reality and then not feeling good about it. And I think it's a dangerous and slippery slope. I might make a separate video about that, because if you knew how to incorporate shifting and manifesting, that's a good thing. If you can do that, I think that's great, but that's not what shifting is intended for, from what I understand. I'm going to do a bit more research on that, but that's not what, from the content that I have consumed, that's not what shifting is. So keep that in mind if you are acting out as if. Same thing with grades, by the way. If you want to act as if you already got the grade, like throw yourself a little party or something, bake yourself a cake or whatever, do that. If you can feel good about it and you can really embody that, do that, because that will strengthen your positive connections, almost like positively conditioning yourself to you getting good grades and then getting a reward. But only do that if you feel like you're not doing that to kind of trick yourself into something or any of those things. But that's what a lot of people do when they also study, right? They trick themselves into studying by getting a reward. This would be like you rewarding yourself for affirming for a reality where you don't have to study and you already have what you want. So please don't forget to affirm, please, or at least do whatever technique you want. I don't really care whatever technique it is. I mean, for me personally, I have really been into like the 10-minute method recently. I really like that. And I've also been very into SATs. For some reason, I kind of like that too. I'm not really so much doing subliminals and stuff at the moment, but there's always a technique that should stand behind whatever it is that you're doing until you're at a point where I was recently. So I had been affirming for something for quite some time, very on and off, very wavery. And then 2 nights ago, I was thinking about something in connection to that situation. And my first thought process was my affirmation. And I was like, great. That's awesome. This is exactly where we want to go. And then 2 days later, I was watching a YouTube video and the person in the video kept repeating words that could be considered signs of my manifestation. I was like, this is hilarious, because this person has never, I've watched them for a long time. They've never said anything like that before. And they kept repeating it, and then they uploaded a video the next day and they repeated it again. And I was like, okay, I get it. Here we go. But if you are starting to see synchronicities like that, which you can, by the way, also ask the universe or whatever you want to call it to give you signs of, I studied enough, now I'm ready, you can absolutely do that. Ask them for birds before land. Ask them for someone else in your friend group or family or whatever to get a good grade, and they'll tell you, oh my God, I don't know how I got it. I didn't even study for it. Something along those lines. You can ask for those things. And then you know that you've done enough, because I know there's huge anxiety, especially when it comes to college applications or school applications in general and grades, because it's something with a deadline. It's something that we know we need to kind of prepare for. And even if we are prepared, we never know if we are really prepared, which is a perfect breeding ground for anxiety, by the way. It literally makes absolutely no sense, because 99% of the time, like the things that you learn in school, you never use ever again. You can ask for signs to alleviate some of that anxiety so that you know you've done enough, you've done everything correctly, you don't need anything else, and you're good to go. Because you should not be anxious, and it should not be a stressful environment, even though I know it's designed to be a stressful and competitive environment. But real life doesn't have to be that way, especially if you know how to manifest. So I want you to get out of that headspace as soon as possible to understand that there's no competition. There's no craziness going on around you. There's no need to consistently live in this place of anxiety and fear, because you already have everything you want. You're in control and you have no competition. I have to repeat it again. You have no competition. You are on top if you want to be on top. And if you don't want to be on top, but you just want to be middle, like in the middle, and that's fine for you, you just want to get passing grades, that's okay too, by the way. You don't always have to be top of the top. I know everything is always like, my SP is obsessed with me. I'm a grade A student. I'm like this, that, and the other. I'm the skinniest of them all. You don't have to be that. You don't have to manifest just because society tells you that this is what you should be manifesting, because this is what people are telling you you should aspire to be. It's okay to be where you are right now or where you want to be right now if that's not what society deems great, because you can just affirm that society sees you as the role model and as great exactly the way you are. Stop bending to all of these they're arbitrary, by the way, these arbitrary rules that someone made up, so we are consistently chasing the carrot that we will never catch because it changes by the hour. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Stop making yourself crazy. You're perfect the way you are. If you want to change something, manifest it, but please make sure you want it because you want it and not because society tells you you should have it, okay? Anyway, I really hope this video helped you. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. I am so grateful you made it all the way until the end of the video, and I will see you in the next one.